out after just a few hours, and some people stayed up to 12 hours. It obviously varied depending on what was needed for the individual. My own first voyage took approximately 6 hours, but other voyages since then has lasted from 6 to 8 hours and up to 10 hours. Sometimes, after the fruits were consumed, the ceremony leader closed the ceremony and each of us shared some stuff about our personal voyages. Sharing is an intriguing process. Whatever about the details of what each one of us went through on our personal voyages, the sharing changed the space between us all and also facilitated a more trusting environment. The sharing part for me is still a little fuzzy, although it was also a very enjoyable part of the ceremony. It does not require much elaboration, as it would not feel right to say what other people revealed on their personal voyages. To write about all the details of these first 6 hours of my voyage would require a book in its own right. The key elements of my personal revelations of this voyage and others to follow may be some assistance to you to read, ponder or consider, in that there may be themes, symbols and or archetypes, etc. You can consider and perhaps pre-study prior to imbibing a medicine plant. This will assist or guide you, reduce confusion and or help you integrate your own experience should the day arrive. Those key elements in personal revelations can be surmised as follows. Key elements revelations of my first voyage. The preparation day before the ceremony of sharing, discussions, dance, meditation and breathing was an absolute must, in that it assisted me greatly in building trust with the ceremony leaders and the guides, and therefore helped me surrender to the medicine. The medicine on this occasion stayed in me, no purging, peeing or shitting. So my body and spirit obviously needed a good dose of the medicine this time round at least. Early on in the ceremony, my body, in a literal sense, felt the vibrations of the planets, the universe, the cosmos, etc., and the vibrations were good. A temple and its high domed vaulted ceiling in particular featured very strongly. The colour blue was the most vibrant colour. The blue in the ceiling of the temple stood out for me, and Mother Ayahuasca presented herself as a blue lady. Talking, discussion and exchanges with others would lead me to writing, which may in turn lead to other people gaining a better perspective on how to integrate their own medicine plant experiences. We shall see. Mother Ayahuasca brought me back to my birth, into this current existence, and provided a more contemporary reworking of that birth, the gift of rebirth. Deep sadness and trauma featured, as did a final elation or a kind of blissful ending to the trauma. That load was faced off and lifted with a final knowing that Mother Ayahuasca was watching over me. A sense of knowing began to seep in on a very deep level, as opposed to a belief of any kind held by the egoic mind. My egoic mind had been switched off, if only for a few minutes or 6 or so hours, and a knowing occurred to me. This voyage was and is a representative sample of death. There is no death as people in civilized society ascribe to, presume or associate it to be, or they are told it would be by certain authoritarians. Mother Ayahuasca has revitalized in me, and she had not yet finished her work. Finally, the ceremony guide and her team of guides were magnificent, to say the least. All participants seemed to open up. There were a few people attending and guiding who connected with me on perhaps another level, so we stayed in touch since then. This connectedness has been and remains a great personal support to me. Ye know who ye are. Garev Mahagwiv Galer. Footnote on this particular first voyage. The room and space the ceremony took place in was filled with music, sounds, noises of people being sick, vomiting, singing, laughter, crying, sobbing, screaming, expressing all and every human emotion from suffering to bliss inclusive, and everything in between. Every now and then, there was complete silence and stillness where you could hear the sound of silence itself emanating from the vibration or breach, from the vibration or breath of the universe. For me, certainly there was no lack of control or ability to come out of the voyage and to be back and present in the room, as certain things arose in me. My feeling is that my intermittent returns to being present in the room were possibly twofold. A, it helped me bring my voyage experiences into perspective for storage in my conscious memory, and B, hearing and feeling other people's emotions assisted me in surfing the waves of vibrations, enabling me to voyage in a smoother way and to avoid purging or expelling the medicine. More on this later. Everything is connected. On being back home from voyage 1. Arriving home from my first voyage was very strange indeed. I had arranged to have no work lined up immediately on my arrival home on the recommendation of a friend. As it turned out, this was a good call and perhaps something for you, the reader, to also consider. Had taken 3 or 4 days out as a recovery or reintegration period after this first voyage. It is not that it was impossible to tune into this reality again, but it sure was difficult to motivate myself to think about or consider work to any great extent, with no normal work lined up for the next few days. It was possible to a certain degree to withdraw into myself, listen to certain types of music, and communicate with my newfound Voyager friends by writing emails. It also gave me an opportunity to do more detailed research on entheogens and medicine plants and all the surrounding paraphernalia, including shamanism and spirituality and so on and so forth. Books were ordered, films and documentaries were watched and listened to. Interesting material was read and notes were taken. Music was downloaded and listened to, and emails were flying back and forth from all corners of the planet. Alongside this, my meditations and relaxations continued, as did my voyaging, and then the lucid dreaming started. Yes, lucid dreaming. Lucid dreaming is when you can dream, are aware that you are dreaming, and can control and direct the dream. Lucid dreaming is available to everyone, irrespective of using, taking, or imbibing medicine plants. It is just that for me, the door to the world of lucid dreaming was opened, along with other doors, or at least some parts of me knew where the doors to those dimensions were. Mother Ayahuasca had handed me a skeleton key with a stark warning: enter at your own peril. Living in the countryside can have certain drawbacks at certain times of year or day, depending on what is going on. Things that town or city folks may take for granted, such as electricity, heating, running water, sewage disposal, food supplies and transport, are not taken as a given for every day of the year, when you are country bound. Despite these challenges, when you have come back from a voyage with a medicine plant such as ayahuasca, there is no better place to be than in the countryside, immersed in nature. You are away from busy people going busily about their serious, important business and being in your presence, but yet managing to somehow ignore you. You are away from the busy noise of commerce, production, capitalism, cars, planes and trains. You can easily switch off from the news, current affairs, politics, statistics, reports, disasters, crime, and blah blah blah, etc. Instead, you can shroud and surround yourself with peace, quiet, tranquility, engage with nice neighbours, or even take time to go for a walk and find out if the neighbours are nice. Read, listen to music, meditate, walk, paint, make, create, write, or just zone out before an open fire. If you are lucky enough to live in the countryside, coming down and or integrating back into normal reality from your voyage is usually an easier ride than living in a town or city. But all is not lost, as there are ways to minimize or mitigate the potential pitfalls, anxieties, stress or concerns that may occur as a consequence of town or city life after a voyage. Here are a few useful suggestions or tips in no particular order or preference. Book or take some time off work when you get home from your voyage. or perhaps even consider planning doing a sickie, as they say. Mind you, doing a sickie or pretending to your employer or workplace you are sick can be stressful, as it may require either self or medical certification, phone calls, and some creative thinking or excuses. You could always suggest you have been through a little death and are still coming to terms with the loss, albeit a temporary one, of your egoic mind, to take some time out for yourself. Find, create, or make a quiet space for yourself, a space where you can get away from the world entirely, with no phone, no laptop, no internet access, television or radio. Let family, friends or housemates know that when you are in this particular space you are not to be disturbed. Use your space to be quiet in, to meditate, to burn incense, to listen to your chosen music with headphones on, to do yoga or simply chill out. Avoid engaging in conversation with people who just don't care about what you may wish to converse about. Get tuned in to when people switch off to what you are saying about your experiences or voyages. Be careful who you choose to tell about your voyage. This includes family members and neighbours or workmates. If they have not voyaged, they may often be the worst critics. It is not that you are avoiding critics, but when you are just back from a voyage, it is best to initially have just a few people who support you rather than an army of critics who don't. Consider staying in touch with 1, 2, or perhaps a few people who you have met and shared a voyage with. Call, email, or write to them. Meet them for a chat if possible. Consider staying connected with them, as you now have at least one thing in common with your fellow voyagers. Staying away from social media platforms is an absolute must for me, as it ultimately generates idle and hollow chatter and wastes a valuable amount of your time and is energy draining. This time is perhaps better spent researching, reading, studying, watching, listening, learning, and speaking or writing directly to people who are on your wavelength, so to speak. Be cautious about what you eat and drink. If you have been fasting or abstaining from certain foods, alcohol and or other substances, your body is still relatively sensitive and pretty cleansed at this stage. It may upset your system to overindulge in or abuse food, drink or substances of another kind. Although not recommended, it is widely rumoured that smoking grass or weed without tobacco, having a joint, etc., can either extend or bring you back into a voyage. Your brain has made some brand new connections, has become rewired to a certain extent, and this new wiring is delicate, so it requires a delicate touch until such time as it becomes established as a new norm. Consider writing about or journaling your experience of voyaging with ayahuasca. Writing for me is very cathartic in that it helps and has helped me remember stuff and integrate in a smoother way. Some people carry, keep and write notes on a voyage and at the ceremony itself. To me, writing whilst at a ceremony is too much of a distraction for the voyage. Your heart and body is a very capable storage device, which we will discover later on, so consider trusting yourself to somehow remember, and with a little bit of prompting you can recall all, or everything at least, that is relevant or important and worth recalling and remembering. Your voyage, and now your return to reality, represents a most fantastic opportunity to consider where you are in life and your life's purpose, where you are going, and the possibility of what may be next for you. This is a gift not readily or regularly presented to all, so do try to take advantage of it in the present when you are hot to trot. In other words, do something with it, and don't just let it fade away into relative obscurity. Writing the above reminds me of the words of a song by a singer-songwriter, musician and bard extraordinaire called Damien Dempsey. The song is titled Not On Your Own Tonight, which is as follows. Walking through the city was as lonely as can be. I'm wandering in the night time out in search of company. I feel real isolation when all around me life, familiar but unfriendly with no choice. And I can see the evil, but I can feel the good. shining out to greet me from within bone and blood. I'm throwing off this loneliness, I can't stick it anymore. Only need myself tonight to open up that door, and I know sometimes it gets so bad, but you're not on your own, so don't be sad. 'Cause if you feel real bad, then you're not on your own tonight. Please don't be so sad, 'cause you're not on your own tonight. Oh yeah. You see, I know the feeling. You don't have to tell me nothing, 'cause you know I know the feeling. Everybody seems to think it's they who bear the pain, they who bear the biggest cross, the loneliness and the shame. Day to day you suffer when you're living in your past. If you started living for the now, you could free yourself at last. If you started living for the now, for yourself and those around, experience and celebrate the freedom that you found, you could free yourself forever and live life as you should. The choice is yours to take now, 'cause I've said all that I could, but I know that at times it gets so bad. But you're not on your own, so don't be sad. And if you feel real bad, then you're not on your own tonight. Please don't be so sad, 'cause you're not on your own tonight. Well, if you feel real bad, then you're not on your own tonight. Please don't be so sad, 'cause you're not on your own tonight. Oh yeah. You see, I know the feeling. You don't have to tell me nothing, 'cause you know I know the feeling. Well, if you feel real bad, then you're not on your own. Please don't be so sad, 'cause you're not on your own tonight. This song is used with the kind permission of Damien Dempsey himself. Thanks, Damo. The song, when you first listen to the words and hear it sung, sounds and feels melancholic. But to me now it is uplifting and inspirational. It reminds me so much of my first 3 voyages all rolled into one. My guess is not that the writer-singer is saying you're not on your own because he is with you, but that something else is shining out to greet you from within bone and blood, and is with you all of the time, but is something you haven't awoken to just yet. And it, whatever it is that is within all of us without exception. Artists, writers, painters, poets, dancers, musicians, singers, inventors, great thinkers and the like can often tap into this, something deep within them, and express it through their art, craft or creativity. You will often hear game players, sports people or athletes speak of getting into the zone or flow, where they do not have to consciously think about what they are doing, they just flow. All people without exception can tap into this it that is within. Sometimes, though, we all need a little bit of a reminder of how to reach that which is within, to open up that door.